We're here at Walker Art Center here. We've taken a corner here. We're very lucky to have here a cafe. The Miko Cafe is actually clear out the whole place for us because we have a very special guest. We have Rabih Mroué. Is really it is really telling to say he's a Lebanese playwright, an artist, and actor, and performance, and writers. There's so many different things, and that really shows in the play that he brought here in the Twin Series, riding on a cloud. It's a fascinating story about his brother, and I found it very, very interesting. Probably this is the first time we see him doing a story that personal and that deep. We welcome you first in Minnesota, in the Walker Art Center, usually a place where you bring a fascinating performance and riding on a cloud. I know there's a lot of talk about how you end up telling a story about your brother and your role in it as a director, writers, and was it really his story? Was it who's telling the story? So take us through, how did that come about?
It has been since long time that I want Yasser to work with me, and he wants to work with me, but I didn't know what. And I always thought that he might do, or we might do something about him, but I didn't know what. And lately I had this invitation from a friend, director of festival, Belgium, Freelason, who invited me to do a work in the Netherlands, and I thought that maybe this my chance to do this work with Yasser, and this was in 2013, and I talked with her about the idea, and she was so positive, and she supported me, and I did it because it was like something that I always fear to approach it, because it's so close to me. It's part of the family repertoire, and the family story matters, so intimate, and it's something that is not related to me myself, which I don't care, or with my partner Lina, that we did a lot of collaboration together, and it's fine, but this is something related to another person, and I felt like a big responsibility how to tell his story in a very subtle way that it keeps him safe and far from peeping on his intimate things, not exposing him. So at the end I came up with this theater piece, Riding on a Cloud, which is based on his true story, but it goes far from his real story.
The complexity of it, the most challenging aspect was the fear of emotional exploitation, as you mentioned some way. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit about how did that affects the process of telling the story and the creative process?
No, it's a very tragic story. Like someone is hit by a sniper, a bullet on his head, which is really tragic. And he was 17 years old in his adolescence, and then he lost everything. He has to start again to learn how to speak, how to write, how to walk, everything anew. So it's really tragic and a traumatic thing. But for me, I don't care about the trauma. I'm not interested in the trauma in the sense that I do something to heal.
That's not the role of the art.
Exactly. So what was interesting to me, and this is the angle that I took and I went through it, which is his relation to language. And for me, theater is language, is representation, and it's all about representation. Mm-hmm. So this aspect that I went through it and elaborate. And I was trying to make sure that every part in this performance, trying to start with his story and then immediately shift before getting into like let's say cheap emotions or like melodramatic, immediately shift into questioning something or putting an idea, a thought, or like some doubts about life, which in a way, like I made it with this strategy, like he starts with each scene or with each fragment, the ball with him, and immediately he started with the ball with him and then throw it to the spectator. Give this ability for the spectator to be able to think, to make distance from what they are watching, not sink into only emotions.
Solution, and that's usually the case in an art and consumer culture. It's usually bringing comfort and entertainment to the audience.
Right.
You bring anxiety and you bring. I mean, people were. I watched last night. People were just silent the whole duration of the play. I mean, they were taken until the last scene. So this is your take on art. That's another.
For me, like art, anyway, it's a way to doubt things, to make questions. It's not about certainties. It's not about conclusions. In fact, it's about making things much more complex.
Yeah.
It's like, in a way, like you have a question, and by answering this question, you get more questions, and so on and so forth.
Telling a story of a brother that close, and you try to avoid all this emotional, and I think you've done a splendid job, because when you watch the story, there is no narrative, there is no beginning and a middle and an end. It's not a linear thing. It's just, it's like kind of spots of his life. So how did you pick up those? He was even raising concern that you actually kind of, you had control over what should be showing there, and what that collaboration between you and him, and who decided which image, which part of the story to be told.
Of course, I was taking into consideration his opinion, but at the end I did the choices myself, and I meant to do it in a non-linear way, and it's built on, as I said before, like it's like scenes.
Yeah.
And these scenes were written separately. So I was like writing moments. It's like fragments about and around his case, his story. And then it was when I wrote a lot, and we did a lot of videos following this, and then it was a matter of editing. It was really like I just like had these scenes, and then I started to try like, okay, this scene here and that scene there, what it gives. And I have to say, like, it works. How you do the order, that thing, it works. And of course it gives another meaning and another direction. Dimension. And at the end, like, I did this choice. Like, at the end you have to do choices.
Yeah, somebody has to do it.
Yeah, so I took this decision to be in this way. For example, I give you like the last scene where this conversation between me and him, this was actually meant to be at the beginning. And the guitar scene, it was meant to be in the middle, somewhere like in the middle. So they ended like to be the finale of the performance. So
it was also a pleasant surprise for us that actually that conversation took place.
Because also it was not also decided if Yasser will be alone on stage or not. I was still also hesitating. Can he handle it alone on stage? Like it's 1 hour something alone, controlling everything. Like, could he make it or not? So when I was writing, I was not sure that he will be alone, and finally, like I went for it. Like I said, like whatever, he should do it. It's his story. He should be on stage.
He's the subject, the object. He's telling the story about himself and actually performing it, and you stepping in.
Yeah, this is what actually I was trying to do in the performance, like how make and work on these three dimensions. Like in one hand, he is on stage playing his role, and he is a character and detached from the role, and he sometimes became a spectator watching about all this.
And he was watching the video like everybody else.
So it's about these three dimensions, where like the character and the persona of the or the actor and the character became one, and then they are separated, became two, and then they became three, like the actor and the character, or the actor and the character, and himself as a spectator. So it's the three shifting from one to another, and sometimes
also layers. It's not just mutually exclusive.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It's a layer after layer after layer, and the audience trying to sift through all of this. It was intriguing for me. One of the thing about a director like you doing a story about a tragic story about his brother. You didn't dwell so much about the incident and that tragic shot. You didn't dwell it. You didn't, bring it up and just drop it in everybody's face. It was just in a backdrop, and you're just telling something else.
Yes. It's because like I'm not interested to tell what happened in the war. There's a lot of really horrible stories, and like 15 years of civil war. You can imagine like every family has a tragic story like Yasser's story. It's in Lebanon. It's not something special, I have to say. And he said in the performance like my story is not worth telling. You can find much more interesting stories than mine. But it's not about this actually. It's so for me it's like a pretext actually to put ideas, questions, doubts, and like to think about it, not to tell it.
I see.
And this is like a big difference, and this is what I try to do.
Yeah. You talk about the issue of representation and how he has to relearn everything. The language, the relationship between the language and reality, and how the language is represented it. And so you take like almost a medical problem, and you made it an artistic way of telling it, and having a dialogue with that idea.
Yeah. It's as I told you, like I start like every part with telling the story, and immediately shift into thinking about it. So, for example, when he talking about representation, and he is not recognizing himself in the photos when he sees himself, because the photo for him it's just a sheet of paper with colors, and then he start to use the camera in order to learn that he could be and people could be present without being physically.
Yes, exactly.
And then he has this idea that he put in front of us, like, then now I can be here and there. And then if this is correct, if I can be here and there at the same time, then it would be very nice that both of I meet as a stranger. And this is what is important in his idea, that to meet myself as a stranger and to re-question everything and like to build a conversation as if I don't know myself. And this means like you have to take out all your cliche or your stereotypes or your traditions, like to start again, introduce yourself to yourself.
What a liberating experience.
Yeah, it's like I think it's a nice idea, like, and this is actually one of the things that I'm interested in, like how you always meet your audience as if it's the first time you meet the audience, and how the audience also should meet my work as if it's the first time they are watching a piece of me, like without expectations. I don't have expectations, they don't have expectation. And it's also related to the family relations, which is like sometimes it becomes like I take you for granted.
Yeah, exactly.
So how we can know we keep this protocol and this respect, and we meet all the time as a stranger, but with much love, huh? And it's not like stranger that this is, you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
But I think also the audience had a chance to meet themselves in all his image and his story, and I saw that people were just, it's like everybody in an island. Usually when you go to a public play, a public space, everybody have the same emotion. People clapping and opera and standing, and it's everybody almost staged. Even the audience part of that stage. But yours is everybody's like an island in the audience and reflecting on the story as if his own. It was fascinating for me.
I'm glad to hear this, because I always like talk about the relation with the audience, that the audience, when I do a work, I should address my work to an audience which consisted of individuals. It's not a mass of people, like have one color, one voice, etc. No, the audience is consisted of individuals, which mean like one, and they are different from each other. And each one from the audience has her and his own opinion, which is different from the other. Maybe not, but at least each one has the choice and the chance to put his opinion. And this comes actually when you are not putting questions, these questions where you only have, and the answer is only yes or no.
Yeah,
so this kind of questions, it's actually it gathers the audience, or at the best it divided your audience into two, like one agree with you and one disagree with you. And what is important is like when you put doubts or uncertainties or problematic without conclusion, then each one of the performer of the audience should think about it alone. And then actually what I also looking forward all the time is this talk after the performance, or the conversation, like the dialogue. And it's not necessary to be with me. It could be between each other.
That's happening so
so this is very important.
It's not a McDonaldization of art, you know. This everything is Mac art, you know. It's like Big Mac. One of the things about the question representation, whom representing whom. I know you're familiar with, I think, was it the French painters, or the painting of the pipe, and he wrote under it, this is not
Magritte.
Yeah. And he said, this is not a pipe. And until today, we're still having a debate what he meant by that. And is this the kind of presentation? He was saying this does not represent a pipe. This is just a paint.
Yeah, there's a reference to Magritte's pipe when he says like, this is not a performance. They say it, and Yeah, it's about representation. Like when you see a photo or a painting, what this represents.
Yeah.
So and in this sense, yes, like it's like a big debate. Like in this sense, yes, when you see like a photo of a knife, then you would say, what is this? This is a knife. But you know that this knife cannot cut.
Yeah. And I think Yasser alluded to that.
Yes, this is what he says, actually.
Yeah.
I'm repeating
Oh,
his lines.
Yeah.
So, but even though, like, even if you know that this is a photo of a knife, but even though this knife, which knife? It's not any knife. And in this sense, like Magritte, he put the caption under the painting, under the draw. Like, for example, he put like an apple, and he says like, this is not a horse, for example.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but this is the logic. Like, he put something else.
Yeah.
And then, like, when you think about the words, because also words represent something, but I think,
Different than the image.
of course, and it's much more stronger, because when you say a horse or an apple, then the image of the apple comes to your mind, and it's not any apple. It's not
Yeah,
the,
donkey.
it's like not all the apples. It comes
Yeah.
like a specific apple with a story of this apple or of this horse. And this is like why there is this scene, which this video of Yasser, where this short stories, and then you have an image and asking, what is this? An image of a key. And then there is words that is related to the key, but never mention that this is a key. But it's actually what this image evoke in our minds. It's evoking a story or a memory or an incident. And then he puts other words.
I see.
So like you see a chair, and then you say like, okay, falling or love or whatever. Like, it comes like a memory about a chair, etc.
I've always thought image as more dictatorial medium than language or words. Like language invites debate and cognitive thinking. Image is like Saddam Hussein. It's like, image is a dictatorial medium. And I think you alluded and touched on that in that play. And I think also that also tells the story of your brother.
Yes, I agree with you, but I also interested also in these images that you say you name them like Saddam Hussein, like to bring these iconic images that are heavy on our life, and they like dominating.
Yeah.
And I did like some works on few images, like trying actually to make another reading, analyze them, decompose them, and take like desacralize them in a way. Like, for example, I did this work, Inhabitants of Images, or even with the work, The Pixelated Revolution, with the images, the videos of the Syrian protesters. It's like how to take videos that, or images that, when you see them, immediately they tell you one thing. But actually, if you keep thinking and looking at them, then you can see something else behind it, behind this image. And I'm interested, like there is a lot of also filmmakers, photographers, philosophers that interested in the hors champ, the off camera, off frame, what's happening. And this is very interesting, actually, when you see an image, to think about
What's not there?
what is not there.
Interesting.
What is hiding this image?
I see.
Huh?
Because you're right.
What this image doesn't want us to see.
Exactly. This is amazing. This is very interesting. And maybe paraphrase or the rephrasing dictatorial is a dictatorial medium. That's what you're trying to do. The image tried to hide something, not inviting a debate. Well, we really enjoyed this play. And one last thing, this play is all over the places, all Europe here. Tell us a little bit about your tour in the United States.
I already performed this piece in New York. It was in April at the MoMA. And now I'm doing this tour in North America. It's like 2 cities in Canada and 2 cities in the States, in the American States. So now I'm in Minneapolis, and
It's very cold outside.
oh God, it's terrible. And in a few days we got to Seattle to present it on the board.
Tell us about the reception so far. Are different? New York, big audience shot. How the people receive the play? Does it make any difference? East Coast.
I think like we are showing this piece in the Walker Art Center 3 times, and each night it's different. It's not the same.
Even in the same area.
So it's like you can't.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you giving your time. We have a Riding on a Cloud here in Walker Art Center, and this is the second evening and Friday night, and tomorrow night also will be on the Walker Art Center, which is Saturday, where I think we'll follow his story. He's making it big. Thank you so much, Rabih. Thank you.